The first time I heard about Ziyah Harris was 4 months ago when I seen the news clip from Court TV and them announcing that Ziyah Harris was presumed dead because they wasn't able to find her. And even with that first video, it was something that did not sit right with me when it came to the family trying to put all the blame on CPS, stating that if they did something, it would not have happened. She could have been saved. When in reality, it was the women in the family that had access to her that allowed Jarvis to have access to her. Because when you're listening to the prosecuting attorney, her name is Kim, she stated that Ziyah did not come home from school. The mother, the grandmother who had custody of Ziyah, stated during her court, when she was testifying in court, that Ziyah did not come home from school. That when she went to pick up the other kids from the after school program, Ziyah wasn't there. And that this isn't normal for Ziyah. Every time she left school, she came directly home. Her auntie Sharon, who was staying in the household, stated the same thing. Ziyah did not come home from school. When you see the video of the prosecuting attorney Kim speaking, she stated that people had seen Ziyah that day.
The case was turned over to the Detroit Police Department. Frankly, that should have happened right away. But they began investigating immediately. The evidence would further show that through text messages that we know and that we have, Ziyah and this defendant were going to meet after school on January the 9th. We know that she did indeed meet up with the defendant that we're charging this case. We also know that several people close to Mr. Butts, who we were charging later, saw them together in several different locations, people that he knew well. We have evidence that at 9:30 p.m. on that day, that Mr. Butts checked into a motel and that Ziyah was never seen or heard from again.
What was the routine supposed to be after school was over?
Okay, well, school is over. The bell rings at 2:40. Ziyah was due to come home. And normally when the bell rings, 2:40, 2:45, she's getting on the bus.
And that's what she normally did on other days?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
And
yes.
What time would she normally arrive back at home?
The Ziyah would be walking in through the door maybe 3:05, no later than that.
And on January 9th, did she walk in at 3:05?
No, she did not.
And were you home when she didn't come home?
I was there for a little while, but I left out to run some errands. But no, when I got to the house, she was not there.
And at that time, did you have a conversation with someone else about her not coming home, Ziyah not coming home?
Yeah. When I picked my children up from the after school program, I went in and my daughter said,
Objection. What you're saying.
I'll
rephrase the question.
Okay, so thank you.
Just talking about what you saw and heard, and not asking for what anybody said, but did you talk to Shannon, your daughter?
Yes, Shannon said she was not there.
Okay. When you got home that day on the 9th, wasn't Ziyah there?
No.
And did you eventually make a police report about her missing?
Yes, I did. Yes,
and when did you do that?
That morning when I got to school, I went up and dropped the kids off to school. I talked with the dean and the principal, and I told them that I was on my way to the police station, and they told me that they would call the police, and the DPS police came there.
And you said DPS, is that Detroit Public Schools?
Yeah.
And did you talk to an officer at that time at the school?
Yes, I did.
And was that at J.D. Clark physically at that location?
Yes.
And you said that morning, are you talking about the morning of the 10th?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Including Jarvis Butt's sister, including his the person that worked with him. I forgot his name. He's seen Ziyah. So they seen Ziyah that day after school hours. So think about this. If you have a child that normally comes home from school and they did not come home from school, the first thing you would do is call the police to report them missing. They did not do that. The grandmother nor Sharon did that. They waited till the next day. So if they would have called the police that day when she did not come home and reported her missing, the police would have went out and looked for her. And if they would have told her, hey, check for Jarvis because he is a known pedophile, he's pervert, they would have been looking for him as well, because they said that Jarvis checked into a hotel at 9 p.m. Now you think about from 9 p.m. until when they realized Ziyah first was missing when she didn't come home. Look at that window of opportunity they had to get that girl back home safely. But because they chose not to, because the grandmother did not report her missing until after she came home, went to sleep that night comfortably in her bed. They woke up the next morning, got the other kids ready, took them to school, and reported to the school officer, not to the police officer, to the police department, to the school. So look how many hours from 9 p.m. when they said Jarvis checked into that hotel to what time the grandmother got up in the morning. Look how many hours went by that he could have done anything to that girl. The suffering that she may or may not have went through during those hours. But they keep wanting to put CPS in it. I'm the type of person, if I see you pointing in the opposite direction saying, yeah, if CPS would have did something, CPS would have, that would make me feel like, what are you trying to distract me from? Because it wasn't CPS, especially according, because then they're going to come back after he has been found responsible for her death. Now he's going to be on trial for her death. You're going to come back on, the other family members going to come back on. You know, other family members going to come back on and sit and be interviewed saying, yeah, it was CPS. And then they're trying to they're giving a report, but they're trying to make it seem like they reported it to CPS, but CPS didn't do anything. CPS did their job. They went out there, spoke to the people, to the two adults. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about the kids because the kids could lie for whatever reason. So I'm not going to talk about the kids because they said nothing happened to them. So I'm not even going to bring them into that. But the two adults, Jarvis, we know he's going to lie. But his girlfriend, the mother, the aunt, the cousin, she's lying for him too. She's covering from him too. And they're telling her. Then you see what the response on the phone. This is in 2012. After Jarvis Butts was found guilty to stand trial for Ziyah's murder, a couple of her family members decided to do another video where in that video, once again, they was trying to put the blame on CPS as far as what happened to Ziyah. They're trying to say that it was her fault. I think it was the cousin, Jernell, who showed her phone. And on her phone, these are the clips that you see. And it was dated April 14, 2022. And it says, yes, meeting until 3. Okay, sorry. NW. CPS called me. What they say. They called about the well-being of my kids. Then they called back to get Jarvis info. I called and they blurted out. She said Mama called her and she had to talk. So to me, it looked as if CPS was doing what they were supposed to do. A report was made and they looked into the report. If everybody is lying, what do they expect CPS to do? I never heard any of the family members say if the mother would have told the truth, Shannon, if the grandmother would have told the truth, if all these other adults would have been around and told the truth, Ziyah would have still been alive. So to me, they have been plotting on that baby since 2022 when she was only 11 years old. 22 when that child was 11. So all these people are protecting this man. And they're still protecting him because, like I said, they keep trying to point towards CPS. That makes me think, okay, what are you really trying to hide? You're trying to distract everyone by saying if CPS would have did their job. No, if they would have did their job and not lied to CPS, if they would have did their jobs and told the kids, look, they're going to speak to you, tell them the truth. Don't be afraid of him. Don't be afraid of anyone. You're not in trouble. It's very important that you don't lie, that you tell the truth. And they may have been more comfortable to open up because they was comfortable enough to open up to let other people know what was going on. So the people, the authorities that could have done something with the truth, they should have encouraged them to tell and let them know what was going on. But if everybody lying, CPS cannot come in and take those kids. CPS, what can they do when everyone is lying, covering for this man that's a predator? That touch other kids. And you see when the reporter asked Kim about the situation, what about what the family said about CPS, you see she didn't speak on it. You see she said, hey, if anyone has been in contact with this man, he touched him, he did anything, come forward.
Some of Desir's relatives said they previously had talked to CPS about allegations of sexual abuse from Desire and other kids. Did that ever make it to your office? Is it something that police have investigated before?
Yeah, let me just say this, that if anyone that is watching this press conference right now or reads any of the coverage that I'm sure that you will give this, has any reason to believe that they were a victim of his or that they know something else, we certainly welcome them to contact the Detroit Police Department.
So it wasn't a direct answer to the question. But Roxy, from the position of the family, is there any level of frustration that the family knew of this, they were reaching out and nothing was done? Is anyone, like, there's obvious blame, Jarvis butts is the one, right? But is there any level of shared blame amongst anyone else who didn't do anything here?
I mean, absolutely. There's definitely lots of frustration within the family. There were family members that called CPS several times. There were family members that called the police as well, and nothing came of it. CPS is supposed to be, safeguard welfare for our children, and they're supposed to be able to respond promptly and do thorough investigations to be able to negate, reports of abuse and neglect. And because of the reports of the abuse and the neglect and the molestation that were reported to Child Protective Services, and for it to just seem like, there wasn't a thorough investigation being done or just turned a blind eye. And unfortunately, it's brought us to this very unfortunate event, which is, my cousin being deceased today.
The reason she didn't, because she read the reports. Like I said, this was 4 months ago. She read the reports from CPS, so she knows CPS went out there. But she know that the family was lying to protect this man. And they still trying to use that lie that it was CPS' fault. Like I said, any organization that you have that's dealing with kids, there's going to be a break in the system where in some cases they're not doing their job. CPS isn't going to do their job for whatever reason. And there's going to be cracks in the situation. But I don't want to put that out there, because if this is an organization that's in place to help kids, then this organization needs to be held accountable for the good they do as well as the bad they do. If they went out there and they did their job and people lied, that's not on them. That's on the people that lied and said, oh, we're not doing anything. Because if they would have came in and took those kids and people would have just been lying, then they would have been looking at them like, oh, they just go around taking people's kids when nothing wrong with them. You have to think about this. Anytime you make a report, if you call the police department and you make a report of something you see going on in the neighborhood or whatever, if you feel that somebody is abusing a dog and you call and say, hey, this is what's going on, they're abusing a dog. Or if it is a child, you call and say, hey, I see that a child is going to be, a child is being abused. None of those organizations is going to call you back and say, hey, thanks for calling, we went and checked it out, this is how it turned out. None of those organizations is going to do that. So you're trying to tell me that because they did not reach back out to you, you felt that they weren't doing their job? When you're in contact with your mother, so you can't say to your mother, hey, did CPS come out here? Did they check on the situation? What happened? You can't talk to Sharon or whoever it was and say, hey, Do they come? Because you see the text message, they say that they're communicating, and she said, hey, CPS got in contact with me. So that lets you, and this was back in 2022. So that lets you know that CPS was doing their job. But once again, how much can they do if you're lying to them? This man was a known predator. Could not be around kids. As soon as I seen him show up at the party, I would have been calling, hey, there's a known predator here at this party. He shouldn't be here. If he showed up at the school, hey, there's a known predator at the school. He shouldn't be here. But none of them did that. But they want to put everything on CPS. Hey, he's at this location. He shouldn't be here. Because like I said, the grandmother knew what this man was accused of doing to her grandchild, to all her grandchildren, because they say he touched his daughter also. They knew what they was doing, but they didn't call the police and say, I want this man arrested. That's who they should have been on. That's who they should have been on, the police department. Hey, this is a predator. He's a danger to these kids. I want him arrested. But like I said, people always be quiet because they're getting something out of the deal. They're getting something. They don't want to mess up their thing. They don't want to mess up their lives. So they're not going to do what they need to do to protect the kids. They're going to protect that man because they're getting something out of it. Because believe me, if they wasn't getting something out of it, they would have called the police a long time ago on him and had him arrested. But they was benefiting in some type of way. You know, I don't know if it was trafficking going on, if they was, you know, they was using her and getting money from her, you know, getting money off of her. If he was doing something and then paying bills, giving people money, this, that, and I don't know what was going on. But it was a lot of people that didn't do what they need to do as far as making sure they called the police. Because just like she said, oh, I was going to call the police, but then I thought my cousin or my auntie or whoever she was, I thought my niece was going to call. Why don't you call? The more people that's calling, that's going to put, you know, that's going to start aggravating them to the point they're going to say, hey, let's go check this out. Oh, he's violating what he's violating, not being around kids. Okay, let's go make sure we check this out. That's why I feel like they need to have in every school, they need to have some type of counseling so kids can go and talk to a counselor, a professional counselor that kids can go talk to when it's something that's going on in their home, as far as them being touched, as far as them being violated. So they can really look into, okay, this is what that child said. Okay, let's make sure we get the child to be checked out to see if they actually been touched, to see if they actually been penetrated. Because if this is a minor and they've been penetrated, who's doing the penetration? And then they can start from there, because these parents aren't doing their job as far as protecting their kids. They're protecting the man. They're protecting the predator. They want to keep the predator around. And they don't want to put ownership on the people that was responsible for her safety. If this child, if anybody would have called the police and said she did not come home after school, I'm worried, I'm concerned, the police would have been on it. If they would have said, oh, there's a predator in the family and we want to know where he's at and that he's not with her, or that she's not with him. But they did not. They knew what this man was doing to this 11-year-old child back in 2022 and allow it to continue. And then they want to put it on an organization. Why didn't they do anything? Because they was lying. Why didn't they help the girl? Because they was lying. Why not call out the people that was lying and say, hey, if her grandmother would have called the police right after school, they may have been able to find her and bring her home. Maybe if this auntie wouldn't have been in love with a predator and stop this predator from coming to the house, stop her from calling the predator. Why would you know this man is a predator, but you still telling her, hey, call him uncle? No, call him a predator. He's a predator. Stay away from him. He's dangerous. Why have her texting him? Why have her calling him? She should have never known his number. He should have never known hers. And everybody who was around him should have reminded him who he was. You are a predator. You shouldn't be here. Why are you at this party with these kids? Aren't you a predator? Aren't you registered sex offender? So why are you here with these kids? Made him feel uncomfortable. But no, y'all want to make him feel comfortable and not say anything. Y'all want to keep everything hush hush and not say anything. And that's why the girl is no longer missing. If she's dead, then he at least should be man enough to say where her body at, so she could be put to a proper burial. And if these other people know something, they need to go ahead and speak up. But like I said, when you keep pointing the finger over here, no, it's this person fault, it's this person fault, it's this. What are you really trying to hide? That's the way my mind works. What's really going on that you're trying to hide, that you're trying to keep a secret because you want everyone else to look at in a different direction, and instead of looking in the direction they should be looking into.
Day, January the 9th, she took this picture.
Oh, move to admit People's Proposed 12.
Any objection?
No objection.
It'll be admitted as People's Exhibit 12.
And when you dropped Ziyah off at J.E. Clark, what was the routine supposed to be after school was over?
Okay, well, when school is over, the bell rings at 2:40. Ziyah was due to come home. And normally when the bell rings 2:40, 2:45, she's getting on the bus.
And that's what she normally did on other days?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
And
yes.
what time would she normally arrive back at home?
The Ziyah would be walking in through the door maybe 3:05, no later than that.
And on January 9th, did she walk in at 3:05?
No, she did not.
And were you home when she didn't come home?
I was there for a little while, but I left out to run some errands. But no, when I got to the house, she was not there.
And at that time, did you have a conversation with someone else about her not coming home, Ziyah not coming home?
Yeah. When I picked my children up from the after school program, I went in and my daughter said,
Objection to what her daughter said. You want to hear something?
I'll rephrase the question.
Okay, so thank you.
Just talking about what you saw and heard, and not asking for what anybody said, but did you talk to Shannon, your daughter?
yes,
about
Shannon said she was not there.
when you got home that day on the 9th, wasn't Ziyah there?
No.
And did you eventually make a police report about her missing?
Yes, I did. Yes,
And when did you do that?
that morning when I got to school, I went up and dropped the kids off to school. I talked with the dean and the principal, and I told them that I was on my way to the police station, and they told me that they would call the police, and the DPS police came there.
And you said DPS, is that Detroit Public Schools?
Yeah.
And did you talk to an officer at that time at the school?
Yes, I did.
And was that at J.E. Clark physically at that location?
Yes.
And you said that morning, are you talking about the morning of the 10th?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Was Ziyah active on social media, if you know?
Well, as far as I know, she was. There were times that she was sneaking, go on, and but yeah, she was.
Okay. And did you keep track of her social media pages like TikTok or Facebook or anything like that?
I tried. A lot of times, I would take her phone and stuff from her, so, to keep her from being on here,
And after the 9th, did you ever see any posts made by Ziyah?
I didn't see any posts. Most of the time, if there was a post or something, or she posts, my daughter or someone would call me and tell me.
Oh. Have you ever heard after the 9th, any communication or seen Ziyah?
Mhm.
When, is that a no?
No.
And when you dropped her off on the 9th at school at J.D. Clark, was that the last time you saw her?
Yes.
May I have one moment?
Yes.
Just to follow up, I did forget to ask this. Her bus stop, how far from your house was that in walking distance?
5 minutes.
Do you know where the location that she got dropped off at was, the address or the intersection?
Right there at a 3 Mile Drive in Cornwall.
And that's 5 minutes from your house?
Yeah.
And did Ziyah have any nicknames that people called her?
Where her family called her